Yeah, I mean, ultimately we're a customer service industry. I mean, we're dealing with sticks and bricks and building the houses, but you want to make sure that you got happy clients. They're going to refer you. They're going to come back to do another project with you, and the only way you do that is earning their trust and selling it over and over.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, our regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Fine Homebuilding contributor and production manager at TDS Custom Construction, Ian Schwandt. Today, I'm joined by Scott Fridrych, Director of Construction at LivCo in Burr Ridge, Illinois. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Scott, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate being on.
So what type of work do you guys specialize in at LivCo? It's kind of one of those strange construction company names that doesn't give you a big upfront of what you do.
Yeah, and I think it started off that way. The two owners had started off in kind of a rich market here in Chicago of home flipping or rehabbing. We've grown and completely left that forum, and now we're in a design build. 95% of our business is remodel and addition. We still do take on a couple new homes here and there, but kind of the focus of our company is more of the experience for the client. Being a design build company, we have the architecture team, the design team, sales, marketing. Everybody is all one cohesive unit. So it's making sure that the client, the minute they walk in the door, feel a little less stressed, a little bit more involved all the way through the project. Where I think a lot of times kind of anybody who swings a hammer can become a remodeler. So we want to kind of lose that stigma and make this more of an enjoyable experience for our clients.
So are most of the projects that you're doing in the Chicagoland suburbs, or are you doing any, like brownstone style row house work in the center of Chicago?
No, we don't really get involved too much in the downtown area. We have done a condo build out for one of our clients in the city, but most of our stuff is about 20 to 40 minutes west of the downtown area, which leaves us a pretty wide range of homes dating back from 120 years old to, we recently did one that's probably only about 15 years old.
Wow. What did you do to the one that was only 15 years old? That doesn't sound like that old of a home.
No, and I think they came in with, a little bit more unique needs of trying to get a little bit more light in the back of their house. Bathroom that they were having problems with, shower leaking, and they knew they're going to have to completely remodel the bathroom to do that, and wanted to kind of bite the bullet and redo a whole kitchen as well at the same point in time. So, my background was building newer homes like that. So it was, a little bit different to go back in there and pull drywall off and see studs, and instead of pulling lath and plaster off and, finding old cast iron pipes and stuff like that. So.
What are you doing with projects like that as the director of construction?
Well, I've recently become the director, but we're a PM, I guess, model. We don't have any in-house carpentry. We do have a general laborer who basically is a carpenter, kind of a jack of all trades. So my role as PM is basically taking the hand off from our design team, making sure it's accurate, making sure that we're getting our schedules built, realistic schedules, writing the contracts with our trades. So I guess kind of the key focuses are, building the project on time with a happy client and bringing it home on budget. So,
but less of the maybe day-to-day work in the field with subcontractors, that you have a team of project managers under you?
Correct. We're basically running a project coordinator and a site supervisor as well. So that's where I'm kind of scaling back now and able to hand off a little bit more of that project management to those guys. So our site superintendent is basically boots on the ground. So he's on the job site 95% of the time. He's in and out of each one of our projects on a daily basis. Our project coordinator is working a little bit more in that area and also working a little bit more on the handoff process from our design team, verifying accuracy, making sure that a lot of the one-off things that we build, we have, unique drawings for it, and we know the parts and pieces we're going to be putting in before we get to that part.
How many different projects are your PM teams and project coordinator teams running at a time?
I'd say we're geared to do about 4 to 6. It doesn't always work out that way. We got up to 9 last summer. Things just kind of bottlenecked, and just with supply chain issues, a lot of the projects are hard to get out of, and labor shortage. It's hard to get some of them started. So we kind of got caught up, and we're digging out of 9 projects, but I'd say we're built to run about 4 to 6. Really just kind of comes down to geography. Most of ours stay in the same area. We have one town that it's all mostly 100-year-old houses. And we tend to probably do about 60% of our work there. So, and that's only about 15 minutes from our office. So, when we're able to do 2 or 3 projects in one town, it makes it a little bit easier on the team.
Are you able to manage your subcontractor pool in the same way? If you have a sub that is near a geographic center, are you able to direct most of their labor to those projects?
We do. Our goal is basically to keep three subcontractors for each one of the trades. And most of them, we kind of fit them to the project. So yeah, if we've got something where it's, we can get the same contractor on 2 projects in the same town, that works out great for us. But some of our contractors, we've got a plumber that's a father and son. So they're great, but they're good for smaller projects. When we need something bigger, they might take, 9 or 10 days to do a project, where if we use our other plumber, they're 4 or 5. So really just depends on what the need is, what the scheduling outlook is looking like for us. And, we don't want to overtax any of our trades either, and make sure, we've got them spread out and we're giving them the tools to succeed as well.
You mentioned before that you got your start in new home building, like the one that was a 15-year-old home. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in that part of the industry and how you got started in construction? Sure.
Yeah, I actually, just kind of grew up handy. My dad was a handy person. He built our garage. He remodeled a little bit of stuff in our house, built shelves, and he kind of always instilled in my brother and I that, if we were going to fix something, we had to do it ourselves. I still remember changing a flat tire on a bike, and he was showing me how to do it, and I took a phone call, and he just put the tools down until I came back and I came back to start paying attention. So, at a young age, I was building skateboards and bikes and skateboard ramps. So I've just always kind of had a knack for working with tools and being, being interested in construction or putting things together. In high school, I got the opportunity to work on a guy's house in our neighborhood he was an engineer, but, he was extremely handy and rebuilt a turn of the century house room by room and stick by stick, every bit of trim in it. And I guess at the time, I didn't even understand that most people just went to Home Depot and bought a piece of casing or trim for their house. So I learned a great deal there. And then while I was coaching a kid's swim team, one of the parents had said, if you're looking for work, I'm running a remodeling company. And at the time, I was going to junior college, and I was actually going to school for architecture. And a couple of days later, the guy called me at 6:00 in the morning, and I got my first, I guess I got to cut my teeth by stripping shingles off a roof. So that was kind of my baptism by fire into the remodeling industry. But I worked with him for about a year and a half, and then went to another company doing very similar stuff, kind of their general laborer, junior carpenter, to the point where, that owner turned to me and said, "You start buying your own tools, I can pay you more money because you're handy enough and you're learning enough that I can have you do smaller projects on your own." So kind of went that route, and then finished my associates in architecture and realized I didn't want to be an architect anymore. So I started looking for schools with construction management, and I ended up packing up all my stuff and moving to Michigan and going to a school there in Michigan for construction management. While there, one of my buddies from my program, him and I started up our own company doing decks and roofs and fences and small remodels. And I came out of there, came home, came back to Chicago, and couldn't land a job to save my life. And about 2 months later, one of the production builders called, and that kind of opened the door for me. I was in production building here in Chicago for 12 years after that. So, that was kind of during the time of the housing bubble, and you were pretty much happy just to keep your job every year. I think that the company I was working for, we were the largest in the country at the time, and we went from, I think in 2005, we had 96 or 98 employees in the construction department. And in 2013, when I left, we had, I think, 16.
Wow.
So it was an interesting time to be there, but working for the largest home building company in the country kind of, I guess, cut my teeth a little bit in how to be efficient, understanding schedules and understanding, I guess, just the building sciences. If you asked me to build you a house prior to working there, I'd have kind of laughed at you if you told me to put some caulk underneath a bottom plate before I stood a wall up. I just didn't understand the building sciences and how air leaks into a house. And so working for the largest home builder, they've got a lot of liability throughout the country. I think back in 2005, we built something like 25,000 homes throughout the country. So the company tends to invest a lot in educating their employees. So I walked away from that company with a vast knowledge of every part and piece in a house. And I basically went from there back into the remodeling world. I went to be the director of construction for a company that was, we were a company flipping houses in Chicago. And due to the amount of inventory, we were flipping about 30 a month. So wow. It was kind of taking production building into the remodeling world, and ended up leaving there. I had a couple kids and started working for myself, flipping houses and doing custom kitchens. And about 4 years later, I came across LivCo, the company I'm working at now, and I saw their website, loved what they were doing, and wanted to be a part of it. So I worked very hard and, getting in touch with them and getting into the interviews, and I found my home here.
What's it like to be on such a wide variety of job sites with that construction management and architecture background?
For me, it's ideal. I mean, I'm a creative person. So, if you would ask me back when I was in school, would I ever go work for a production builder, it would have probably been the last place on the planet I would tell you I'd go work. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with it. We built great homes and, I learned a great deal there, but it's the assembly line. You're building the same thing over and over and over. And I'd rather be in something where I have, allow my creative juices to flow a little bit and see something unique. And, that the design team we have at Liv is second to none. I mean, we really come up with some really unique concepts, and being able to take those and bring them to life is, one of my favorite things about being at this company. That one of the nice things is I grew up right in the area where our company is. So I live about half an hour south of there now. So to be able to come back up and work in that area on a lot of these, these homes I worked on, or, maybe visited or worked on. And it's nice just to be back in that same area and with things that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how the top 3 production home builders in the U.S. do over 100,000 units combined. And I think that gets to be a mind-boggling number for somebody that especially is focused in the remodeling industry. Yeah, and I mean, did you
kind of on that, where I was working in production building, everything was, the urban sprawl. We were, 30 to 50 minutes away from Metro Chicago. So to be back into you're out in the cornfields and, you're stuck on one site, or not stuck on it, but you're working on a site, where you're building 300 homes and you're there for 2 or 3 years, so it's nice to be kind of changing things up and not just pushing out widgets and trying to, better your time on each one. This is a little bit more of, hand-holding and partnering with your clients, making sure that they feel like they're involved. I don't have a purchasing department here who's writing all my contracts with my trade partners. And, we don't only have 4 or 5 colors of tile that you can use here. So it's nice being able to, work with different materials. And, every house we open up and it's got a new challenge that presents itself to us.
Do you get a chance to work with the design team to help come up with better materials or better finishes for the projects? Or are you more of you're taking the package and executing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll help out with some of that stuff. It's more just them bouncing questions off me. Ultimately, I don't think you want me designing your project. I know one of our owners, he always, jokes that if he designed it, everything would be just beige. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll, I guess, test out new materials and look at different products. And that's a lot of times, where the design team will reach out to me and bounce some questions off me on, whether we think this will work. Or almost every one of our projects, Ian, has something that's unique to it, that we've never done before. So making sure that we, know the materials are going to go in there correctly and we're using the right trade to do it. Maybe it's one of those things where we turn to our trim carpenters and we say, you know what if we had you build this off site? Would that work better for you? And you bring it to the project finished. And so, some of those things is where I can kind of provide some feedback to the design team and help out and deliver that, for our clients.
Having that feedback loop with production can be really important to the designers and maybe help them think a little bit differently. In your example of asking a trim or casework contractor, is it better if you build this in your shop and bring it back here, and then feeding that back to design so that they can have a little bit different of an outlook as to some of the finishes that they come up with.
Yeah, and like I said, we've gone that route a couple times. And sometimes we'll bring our trades in to actually sit down and talk with the design team if they've got something they want to try out. I mean, it's been hot now that people want bidets. So now we're having to run electricity near a toilet. Nobody's ever done that So there's all kinds of goofy things that become popular or somebody wants to try out. And I'm not an expert plumber, so I'd rather tap into my experts and kind of like our design team does with us.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you throw something different into a bathroom, because that seems like a spot that most remodeling guys and contractors, like, we know what a bathroom looks like, and there's not a lot new you can do, and then now all of a sudden you've got something else going on in there, and outlets behind the toilet, things like that can really throw guys off, and that's something that can be easily forgotten too, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like the other thing is charging drawers. That's something we're seeing in a lot of bathrooms, a lot of kitchens, making sure you have proper electricity there. It's pretty hard to go back and bring some electricity into a cabinet after you got countertops and stuff set. So, understanding what the needs are and what that product is going to require. Again, kind of that situation where it's nice to have design and build in the same office where we can troubleshoot those and understand what we have to have, instead of an architect just saying, hey, here's what you guys are building, and you're left to try and figure it out on your own. So
the electrical requirements are an interesting one for us in Madison. I feel like most remodels end up kicking in some type of a service upgrade, or we have a lot of older stock homes that have the electrical meter is in the basement. Do you have any oddities like that with some of the older home stock around Chicagoland that you have to be cognizant of that maybe isn't always on design's radar?
Yeah, we run into a lot of that. The electric panels that you're talking about, we also run into it a lot with plumbing. We're held to a certain amount of fixture counts here in Chicago, and we got a lot of areas where there's still lead-based services going into houses. So there's towns that are looking to go through and remove all that infrastructure and change it. And so we've got clients who want to kind of wait and see if the town's going to pay for them to do that before they go into the remodel, or we kind of roll the dice and go through the the project, and hopefully by the time we finish, the village will move on to their street and move forward with that. But yeah, we run into tons of unique things like that. Just being in an older metropolitan area, we still have some houses where we got knob and tube wiring. So I mean, it's fun to go into stuff like that, but yeah, it definitely presents a challenge.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff you don't know until you start demoing that you've got some old knob and tube that's still in service yet.
Yeah, we do. Our design team, our estimator, and one of our lead designers, they go out to every project early on to do measurements, and we use a Matterport. So we basically go through and get full measurements, full 360-degree pictures of every room in the house. We measure the water service coming in. We check to see if it's a 100-amp service. So usually by the time it's coming over to the construction team, most of those items have been identified, and we've got a pretty good plan in place. And if it's something where we just don't know, we normally do a pretty good job of knowing that, that's something we need to discuss with the client. That, we may run into a change order here. Once we open this wall, we're not sure, we know you've got an old plumbing stack, and I can show you what the one looks like that we just pulled out of the last house, where you can put your hands in the side of it because it's got such a big hole in it. So, a lot of it just setting those proper expectations that, you're in an older house, which brings a lot of character, and it also sometimes brings some headaches. So
we've started using Matterport on our projects as well. And for people who haven't heard of it, it's a rather large camera, right, Scott, that takes a series of photos of the home, and then you can create a multi-leveled dollhouse view of the house, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's we just invested in one about halfway through 2022 here, and it's been a great resource. I think the first house we actually ran the Matterport on so we've been putting it in at basically the rough inspection time as well. So it never fails if we need to find something in a wall before we finish up the house. It never fails. We have a million pictures, and we don't have the picture of the one stud bay that we need. So by putting the Matterport,
or you've got a little corner of it that you've got to blow up and try and make a good guess if you're seeing the whole thing, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, you can pull every measurement you want off these too. They're pretty accurate. So when we first got it, we set it up in our office just to try it out, and we had a sheet of paper on the wall, and we zoomed in on it, and it was sure enough 8.5 by 11. So yeah. They're pretty accurate. So if you can get that level of accuracy early on, for our team to start designing a remodel, and they know the floor to ceiling height, in every room, instead of pulling measurements in one or two rooms, and all of a sudden you go into the next room and didn't realize that, they had put 2 layers of hardwood flooring in that room, and now that room is actually 1.5 inches shorter than the other rooms. So being able to have that as a resource has been awesome for us.
We recently sent a Matterport model to one of the electrical inspectors here and had him weigh in on whether or not we were going to have to plan on adding additional outlets to this space, which had old masonry walls that used to be the exterior of the house on 2 elevations, and we really did not want to have to get into those walls. And the electrician was like, this is my interpretation of the code, but we sent the Matterport file to him, and he was like, no, I'll give you the variance on that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use that tech to help you out.
Yeah, it's a great idea. We're planning to actually start giving access to the clients at the end of the project, be able to give them, so, somewhere down the road, they want to hang a picture or something, or, they know where a stud is in the wall. So I think it'll be a good marketing tool for us as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat product, and the way that you can see the multiple levels and pull them apart and zoom in and spin around in a space, and like you said, be able to take the measurements off of it is pretty cool. What are some of the similarities and differences that you've come across in working in the production new build industry segment, and then also in pretty high end remodeling?
I guess, kind of to go back to it, it's, it's still on time, on budget, happy clients. And that kind of rings true across any of it. Other than that, and it's the understanding of how the parts and pieces go together. So when I was in the production build, everything came out in panels. We found the ways to make everything as efficient as possible. So we could build a house and have it shelled in with a roof, doors, and windows in 15 days. So that's a huge difference than we have in the remodeling world, because remodeling world, we're going to spend the first 2 days just kind of opening stuff up and seeing what we have to add on to and how we're going to, I guess, deal with some of those changes. Like I mentioned earlier, in the production world, you're working for a big corporate company. So we have, a department for everything. We have a marketing department. We have a purchasing department. We have, somebody who handles every different aspect of the building process. Or when you're working for a smaller company, everybody kind of gets their hands a little bit dirty, and you start to understand every different part of the business. At the production builder, we really didn't have a whole lot to do with the budgets. The budgets were set from day one, and there weren't a whole lot of change orders because there weren't a whole lot of changes we allowed. So this is kind of a different animal. The other thing I mentioned is we want our clients to feel like they're part of the team. So, from day one when they walk in, through conception and through detailed design with our company, all the way through construction, we do an appointment every week with them during production. So we're going out there and in every one of those meetings, we're basically telling them that their completion date, going through any questions they have, going through their allowances, all their change orders. So, there's never any surprises. We just want our clients to feel that, we're there for their best interest. We want them included. We want them involved. There's nothing we're hiding. And I think a lot of that was similar to the production world too. We want our clients involved. We want them to be happy. And, that's, I guess one of the very similar things is those three items of on time, on budget, and a happy client.
You mentioned the weekly client meetings. Is that something that you're running as director of construction, or do you create the system and then the PM runs that meeting?
I am still running them, but I do have the PM alongside. So those will be probably here in the next year. It's something we implemented about halfway through last year. We got up to nine projects. That was something we felt that was lacking, was actually the personal touch that we've always prided ourselves on. So where we felt like we were starting to neglect it a little bit, we figured that if we could do a weekly meeting, and sometimes those are just, a Zoom call. But for the most part, we like to try and get out there in person, and they're usually only 20 minutes to a half hour, but it helps you build that relationship with the client. And just helps everybody, everybody be aware of any questions or concerns that are out there. A lot of times you'll, have a client bring up a concern and, oh yeah, no problem. And then you forget about it, or the client forgets about it. And 6 weeks later, now it's buried behind the drywall. So yeah, that's something that'll definitely start to get handed off to the rest of the construction team to run that meeting. But I'm still been involved with them as of yet.
Do you find that most of your clients are looking for that level of interaction, or do you have clients that are like, hey man, I hired you to do the job, you just tell me when it's done?
Yeah, we get a little bit of both. That's a good question though. So I definitely have some who could care less. We every once in a while you get the one who just says, here's my check, just do the project. I don't want to deal with these payments. I don't want to do. So we get all kinds, but like I said, it's, to us, we want them to have that appointment. We want to have that FaceTime with them. We're continually selling the project the whole way through. So, they've already paid, they're already committed. We've already put a hammer, to the walls in their house, but we want to make sure that, every time we're there, they're understanding they made the right choice by selecting us to do their project. So having that FaceTime and being able to explain things in the house and, at different stages, that just kind of helps us drive that home.
That idea of continually selling the project back to them is a really interesting idea. Going to different construction management seminars, you see all these graphs about how people's emotions move through the project and different stages where you're really excited and feeling a lot of anxiety about the project. That's interesting that you've kind of got that built into your rhythm with the client to just reinforce that they've made the right decision and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we're a customer service industry. You know, I mean, we're dealing with sticks and bricks and building the houses, but you know, you want to make sure that you've got happy clients. You know, they're going to refer you. They're going to come back to do another project with you, and the only way you do that is earning their trust and selling it over and over. So that was one of the things that was kind of taught to us in the production building world, and I've gone through and put together a PowerPoint and reiterated that message to my own team that, we're always selling, no matter what your role is in the company. And even if they've already given us their check and we've started work, we're always walking in there and saying, hey, this is a great selection you did here. I love, the way this turned out. And so it's again, part of making sure that they're involved in the project. You and I have both walked into a Verizon store or something like that, where you just, that they've been trained to, in the sales aspect in there. Sometimes it might be a little bit much, but at the same point in time, you appreciate that, they're using your name. They're saying, hey, Ian, what can I help you with today? And, that stuff goes a long way. So we definitely pride ourselves on that.
One of the management classes that I took as a apprentice carpenter through the Carpenters Union, the teacher constantly used enterprise rental car as an example of the professionalism that even just a basic salesperson is going to have with you, and trying to think about how you can bring that to that experience. And it's pretty interesting that you've got your team tuned into that. Outside of the people end, what is the most important thing that your role can bring to a project to ensure its success?
Well, like I said, I'm a little bit newer to the director role at this company. When I was with the company, we were doing the 30 flips a month. I was the director of construction there, so I'm familiar with the position. I'm familiar with leading people, and I've been with this company and with this team for a couple of years now. So it's really just continually implementing systems that keep us efficient, keep us on the cutting edge of technology, and making sure that, our team is constantly learning new things. We do a lunch and learn every month, whether that's bringing a vendor in or, me putting together everybody's in sales PowerPoint presentation. But the main goal is just empower our people to do what they need to and make the decisions they need to, and make sure that they have the best resources and, the best education to do so.
So do you have any time to work on your own home, or do any projects around your house, build any furniture, things like that?
Well, I'm glad you're asking me and not my wife. So I've been finishing a basement for about 2 years now. So this summer we got into, the 9 projects. I finally threw in the towel and just said, I'll start paying my trades to come and do this. So that's in high gear. But I do enjoy woodworking and building things. I built all the cabinets, custom cabinets in my office at home, glass doors and really, really unique stuff that I did on it. And I built a barbecue table for a buddy, actually, that I brought up by you up there in Madison. And actually, the guy whose house I'm sitting in right now, Rich, yours is coming too. So I'm supposed to be building him one. That's about 2 years in the making. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, I've worked with tools since I was a little kid, and I definitely love, rolling up my sleeves and being able to use the tools when I can. So
one of the things I picked out of your bio was that you and I share an affinity for a certain brown liquid that typically comes from the state of Kentucky. So what's your go-to everyday bourbon, and do you have one that you got stocked away for a special occasion?
I'd say my go-to is probably Bullet. Just because I can buy the big bottle at Costco. But yeah, last year for Father's Day, my wife got me a Bourbon of the Month Club. So I've been kind of socking those away. Those are a little bit higher end bourbons, but yeah, if I'm treating myself, it's going to be probably Weller or E.H. Taylor or something like that I'm sitting back and having a couple sips off.
Have you gotten anything interesting from that club that you're willing to let the world know you got?
Yeah, I got an Eagle Rare that was kind of impressive. The nice thing is each one of them came with like a little bio card. So there were some of them I'd never even heard of, but I got a buddy who's crazy into bourbon and collects it, and he collects more than he drinks. So I'm not on that end of the world, but I just keep showing him the cards like, oh, that's a great bottle. So, once the basement's finished, I'm building a bar down there. I'll have all those bottles and we'll start tapping into them. So
nice. Scott, it's been great having you on. Is there anything else that you want to throw at our audience before we go?
No, I think it's unique being in this industry. It is a little cheesy to say, but we get to build the American dream. Everybody, this is their home is usually the most expensive purchase that they're going to make in, the remodeling and renovation industry. You're taking houses that just weren't designed for the modern family. And, we get to kind of, with our expert design team, come up with some really cool concepts of, how we make this particular house work for this particular family. And it's, can go from the 1-car garage or the, 100 square foot kitchen to, making some of these houses where we have an island that's 100 square feet. So, I mean, it's definitely fun and unique and very gratifying, and to be able to change people's lives for the better just by, remodeling their home.
That's great. Building the American dream. I love it. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to finehomebuildingpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us wherever you're listening. Helps other folks find the podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks again for listening.